Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by the Adam Meakin, the One, Sleeping Warrior, Righteous Force, Chocolate Saiyan, Brian's Logic, Arwin, and 10th Man in G+. Very good to have you all.
Hello.
Good to be here. Happy Thanksgiving.
Good afternoon. We are winning.
We are winning. Any sign? No, I'll introduce Discord first. Hello to everyone in Discord. How you doing?
Hello from Discord.
Oh.
Hello.
Hello, Nathan.
Hello.
Very good to have you. Very good to have you all. Any signs of Earth curvature? Any signs of?
Is there a quantum eraser in Discord too?
There is. There is.
Negative.
That's a paradox.
That shit.
One word paradox right there.
We have our own Terminator.
Are
now
you
on
here?
Discord.
Negative. Right. Any signs of Earth curvature?
Not from Ontario.
No curves on the flat plane.
Not from Nottingham.
Not from Southern Ireland.
Well, I'm actually going back. I'm on episode 130, and it's pretty funny listening to you guys talk about curvature with these ballers. And you have to literally repeat your claim within the same show like 10 times, and they still can't get it. You got Alan B in there and a couple others. Alan B is making a fool out of himself. Goodness gracious.
Shocking.
Some things don't change.
Any viable hypothesis in the entire history of the fields of cosmology, astronomy, or astrophysics?
No. Danny
No.
Faulkner has never performed a scientific experiment.
So if you haven't kept up to date with the Flat Earth Debate, the most recent update on Dr. Daniel Faulkner, PhD, who asserted he could challenge and refute any flat Earth claim, is that you can have gas pressure without a container, and then he referenced Hillbilly Blue Balls, the redneck retard demonstration of gas pressure in a sealed container moving to gas pressure in an open container as a demonstration of gas pressure without a container. So that was his first foible. The next major problem is that he's recently come back and said that he accepts that by our definition, that would be gas law and the second law of thermodynamics, the gas would fill the available volume if the sky was a vacuum. But, because the sky is a vacuum and it's not dispersing into it, then the sky is a vacuum. And there's something wrong with your question. That's his most recent entry into the fray. So his circular reasoning is such: the sky is a vacuum and the gas isn't dispersing into it, therefore your question's wrong. That's his most current entry.
Unbelievable. What a
Can I make
clown.
Yeah,
Can I make one addition onto that? It's also not a natural gas that he's using. It's actually man-made gas that's very dense.
That who's
To
using?
assist him.
Who's
Hillbilly
using-
Blue
Oh,
Balls,
Hillbilly
Little
Blue Balls.
Science.
He's dead way before that. I see what you're saying, but
I'm just kicking the horse.
yeah, I see what you're saying, but the concept and the principle still applies, right? He's dead long before that anyway. As soon as he shows up with the gas container.
The entropy still occurs. It just slows the rate slightly because it is more dense, really, than the average.
Well, no, because of the quarter-inch pipe.
Yeah.
No, because of the quarter-inch pipe.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
But
Why
yeah,
is the PhD referring to a YouTuber rather than a genuine scientific demonstration of that?
Well, because he's a moron. Back to Adam's
two
point.
reasons. Two reasons.
Second,
Two reasons. Number one, he's a moron. Number two, he has no scientific validity to any of his assertions. And the next closest thing, literally, the next closest thing a PhD astronomer can acquire in this regard is a redneck retard. Because their religion is retarded. And that's the best they've got. That's why.
Yeah,
So
it shows you
what do they
exactly
say
what
to
he
the
did.
students then that are going
He
through these?
Put into Google
Hold on,
real
just one
quick.
second, Chocolate.
Put into
Hold on.
YouTube real
Hold
quick.
on, Chocolate. Hold on one second.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, my friend.
I was just wondering, what is it that they say to astronomy students that are in universities when they, no doubt, ask this question themselves?
They don't ask the question. They just put the stuff out to their students, have their students memorize and regurgitate what they said. Obviously, no one's challenging them, right? Obviously. So what the students do, well, to get a good grade, what you're going to do, you're going to memorize and regurgitate, right? That's it. No critical thinking, no reasoning, nothing, zero. Memorize, regurgitate.
Yeah, the students aren't asking the teachers, how do you have a gas pressure without a container? They're not doing that. They've already been indoctrinated to understand that you can because the sky is a vacuum and we're breathing. So it's all good, right? They're not given the tools that they need to understand that, A, you can't have the gas pressure in the first place without some sort of container.
That lady, Dr. Becky, that was shared on Master B.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Dr. Becky.
I think she's a good example that astrophysicists aren't really taught what a vacuum is, because she was one of her theories is that there's more hydrogen in one place than in another in space. Like, does she not understand a vacuum? You're not going to have a pool of hydrogen in one place more than the other. That wouldn't be how it would go.
Yeah,
and she also went to a big lecture in a big auditorium in London to watch this guy who him and his friends created an image of a black hole. An image. Not
just go back to you. Sorry,
They
Brian. Before
created
you,
an image.
I don't want loads of random assertions in regards to whoever the hell this Becky person is. So you're saying it's unreasonable for her to assume that you could have a pool of hydrogen in the vacuum. Well, yeah, logically you're correct, but when you refer that to her, a heliocentrist, that would be incorrect, and I'll tell you why. To her, what's Jupiter?
Yeah, it's a big planet.
What kind of
Gas
planet?
giant.
Yeah. Go on, Brian. What kind of planet?
A gas planet.
So it's a gas ball in a vacuum.
Yeah.
So by her logic, you can have a massive gas ball. So puddle of hydrogen, no issue for her. That's how cognitively screwed she is.
You're correct.
Yeah, Dr. Becky in Wonderland.
Oh,
Did
it's
I
all
hear
good, man. You could have giant balls of gas, concentrated in a vacuum. That's all good in the heliocentric. So why would she question that? She could work within that because that's where she lives.
Well, it is the case in the heliocentric model. It's not all good. It violates laws of nature. But that's what they have in their model, violations of natural laws. Definitely not all good.
Right.
That's what we're into.
But they think it's all good.
It's all
That's
good
the
to you,
problem.
Chocolate. Then what are you doing here? That's all good.
In the whole world.
If I
Nathan,
can
in the
comment
whole
on
world,
that, and
It's not violating the natural law because she has her own natural law of gravity to back it up. That's
Not a
where the
law.
problem lies.
That's not a law.
But to her, it's a natural law. And that's where she will fall back on. I know it's not a
But it
natural
isn't.
law.
The law of gravitation's been superseded. So even in her worldview, that's not correct.
Still falling back on it.
They won't.
Like
She
Danny
wouldn't.
Faulkner.
If she's a doctor in this subject, then no, she won't fall back on that. What am I talking about? We've just watched a PhD do it. What am I talking about? If she needs a force, she's going to find one from Reverend John
point.
Michel.
I like the way, Nathan, I was just thinking about what you said about Danny Faulkner is the way he's justified it is he's now reconciled in his mind that because the sky clearly is a vacuum, that it's not any more natural laws, it's flat earthers' way of viewing things. He'll concede that point, but he's now not recognizing that it's actually natural laws that are opposing his model.
Yeah, it's
Someone's
your question.
typing.
Yeah, he's saying your question or phraseology is wrong or words to that
Yeah.
effect. Well, no. This isn't assertion we're making. This is natural law we're quoting to you.
But does he not say in the start now, accepting your viewpoint, that the gas would fill the volume? Your viewpoint being second law, third dynamics. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but he agrees with that point because he says the fact that it doesn't, right? So he knows that it would if it was a vacuum. That's why he says the fact that it doesn't means that Anthony's claim is wrong.
Anthony's
See what
not
I'm
making.
saying?
Yeah, but Adam's saying Anthony's not making a claim. Anthony's pointing out a natural law to him, as opposed to making a claim.
Exactly.
It's not his viewpoint. It's a natural law that his sky vacuum is in defiance of. But he's saying because my sky vacuum violates that natural law, your viewpoint's wrong. Well, no, it's not a viewpoint. It's a natural law that your sky vacuum is in violation of. But your justification is, yeah, but it's still a sky vacuum, so it's all juicy and good. No, that's circular reasoning. Just because you believe it's a sky vacuum that would, if it was, violate natural law, doesn't mean that it isn't violating natural law. It means the sky isn't a vacuum.
Yep.
So I think we've covered gas pressure without a container. Any evidence of the R value, Earth radius?
No.
Any self-perpetuating molten iron cores at the centre of presupposed spherical Earths?
No. Just a bit of seismology.
Distance to the sun? Anybody? Discord? You're all very quiet.
Nobody even knows what the sun is.
Can anyone even attribute a distance to the sun? How do you know it's? Don't you need not you personally, but doesn't one need to establish that the sun is a physical object first?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you need
it'd
to
be-
know either its actual size or its distance to get the size, and you
Yeah.
need one to get the other, and we don't have either.
Would be a good place to start. But yeah, nobody's done that yet.
But just to bring it back to his question, so if you've got a reflection, so if I've got a torch with a bulb and I project a light out from it onto a mirror, which then reflects it onto a surface, well, the reflected light will have a size. But is that an actual size? Or is it just the actual size the light has projected from my bulb onto a mirror, onto the surface that you're measuring? In other words, you've got to make a few leaps in logic before you start measuring it.
Yeah, and according to Michio Kaku, that's okay. Leaps of logic, baby.
Well,
Guesswork.
their leap of logic would be to assume that you're standing on a spherical surface when you start making those measurements and adjusting the angles accordingly. Well, we don't need any sort of R value presuppositions to get the distance to the sun if we don't know what it is, or how big it is, or how far it is. I think that concludes the housekeeping. I think we've done them all. You're all very pleased about that. Who is it that said they'd been listening to the older shows? Presumably when there was hordes and hordes of globe heads rumpusing the crap out of every claim being made.
Travis.
Oh, it was awful. It was terrible, man. You got Lottie in there, about the most idiotic person I've ever heard. Actually tries to run your show. Alan B kicking people, sniping people, claiming to be Jeffrey. You got Sleeping Warrior in there holding it down, giving his claim.
I remember the Jeffrey nonsense. Sorry, Travis.
Sleeping Warrior was a rock back in the day. He early on recognised that I was drowning badly and went, "You need help?" And I went, "I do! Rescue me!" And he did. So thank you, Anthony. Shout out to Sleeping Warrior.
What was the rest of your sentence? You said Sleeping Warrior was what, did you say?
Said I needed rescuing. I was drowning in a sea of globe heads.
Not you, Travis, because Chocolate spoke over him and I didn't hear the last of what he said.
Oh, I just said you came in there and you laid it down, man. You and Ranty, Nathan sent you that 66-foot tape measure, something I've never even heard of before. We have 100-foot tapes here in America, but you guys measured the cliff. You made your claim at 35 feet. Everybody just could not let it go that you had a higher observation height and kept trying to just muddy the waters and confuse everything. And you guys just came in and laid it down and, held your own, and you held the line, really, at that point. If we're talking about being in the trenches.
So let's just summarize that whole height thing. The claim that I made at the time was that it was 35 feet above the sea, right? That was because that's what it said on Google. When we measured it, it turned out to be, it went from 35 to, was it 49 or 47?
On screen now by coincidence.
It was 12 feet difference. That's all it was. So these claims that it was like 120 plus is nonsense. It was about 12 feet out. That's it. It made jack all difference between whether you should see that on a plane or not. You couldn't see it on a ball, but we can clearly see the stuff that I could see. I didn't know what I was looking at. It was Ranty's fault. I didn't even plan on releasing it. It was only when Ranty said you should release it because I think there's some ball earth, flat earth discussion there. And I released it, poked the bear a little bit, and then it just opened up the doors to hell.
Whereas now, that whole argument becomes completely moot. And the reason is simple. It's on screen now. So what we're looking at is Mackord Lighthouse at a distance of 31.4 miles from the observer, which is Anthony. And the discussion that's been summarised a moment ago by Sleeping Warrior is in regards to the observation position. Now, when you run the calculator through the motions in regards to this observation, you'll be calculating how much of a, to keep it simple, 200-foot lighthouse is being obscured by a not actual location, otherwise known as the horizon, by their standards of reified sphere edge. Now, in reality, this that I'm circling on screen for the people watching at home isn't a feet and inches value in this image. It's an angular size, a not actual size that will reduce with distance. So obviously if you're standing right next to a 200-foot lighthouse, well, that's a pretty big lighthouse if you're at the base of it. You'd have to lift your head right up to see the top of it. Now, as you go further and further away from that lighthouse, you're going to lower your head down more and more towards the horizon as it gets further and further and further away. So the assertion that it's a 200-foot lighthouse is meaningless when you're talking about something that's in the distance, because it has a reduced angular size. Now, this feet and inches value will be demonstrated by the begging the question, proof of nothing, perspective hijacking curve calculator by way of a side elevation, otherwise known as an orthographic view, fondly referred to by us as Muppet vision, because you see the side of your own head. Now, in this image on screen now, we can't see Sleeping Warrior's head, but that's what you'll see in the curve calculator. You'll see the side of the observer and the target. Now, what that does is keeps the values for the object in the distance at a fixed value, 200 feet. And you can draw or right on the line between observer and target any value you like. So in this instance, you'd write on that side elevation curve calculator view 31 miles. But I can write 31,000 miles on a side profile and just change the scale as much as I like. But you've still got a straight line drawn between target and observer. In reality, at 31,000 miles, this lighthouse, 200 feet of it, would be too small to see. And at the point that it reaches that very narrow angle, the most limited angle at the bottom of the lighthouse will be the first thing to disappear into that limited angle. It will reach and breach something called the diffraction limit, an angle where what you see in the distance will be too small to resolve by your camera or eye or camcorder, in this instance, a camera filming something, a lighthouse at 31 miles. So by using 200 feet, you remove all aspects of perspective, admirably demonstrated by the fact you can see the side of your own head in a side profile and attribute any value to the distant target you like and keep the whole numbers of feet and inches or meters when you do so. So this is the actual description that has come from us in show 66 to 200, begging the question because we didn't know any better and allowing them to assume the Earth has a radius value automatically in the calculation and ignore all effects of perspective by utilising whole numbers, feet and inches or meters, rather than the angular size, which is what we actually observe. Hence the perspective hijacking portion of the name we attribute to that calculator, begging the question because it has an R value assumed already. Aren't you trying to prove the Earth's a sphere? You've already got the sphere value. It's the R value in your curve calculator, which begs the question. Perspective hijacking, I've just explained. It removes all aspects of perspective and angular limitation by using feet and inches for a distant target. Proof of nothing, because it doesn't prove anything, it begs the question and removes perspective. Curve calculator, a double whammy begging the question fallacy. If it's a curve calculator, it's not going to be proving your point, it's going to be assuming Earth has curve. And that's precisely what it does by utilising the effects of perspective and simply calling them Earth curvature. So that's what we would address now, rather than the merry dance of how high is the observation point for about 3 weeks, say 3, probably 10 weeks straight, with all sorts of smear videos made about us lying, when in reality they're hijacking perspective to reify their religious belief in an Earth that's spherical. So there we go, that's the crap we had to endure back in show 100 to whatever.
Absolutely, and they would
would
also bounce back and forth. Oh, I'm sorry. Am I stepping on someone?
Hey, go ahead.
No.
Chocolate looks good.
Yeah, go ahead, Travis.
All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, I was just going to say, they were also bouncing back and forth between Google Map, Google Earth, and the survey ordnance maps, and they were trying to use one on each side, and you were holding them to task, basically saying, no, you have to use one or the other because your claim was about Google. It wasn't about the actual height. The actual height was just your guys' way of checking it. But yeah, oh my gosh, I don't know. They just
have they got into arguing yet about how Google is not their model? We've gotten to that part.
Yep, that's when that happened.
Yeah.
Yep.
They turned on. They threw Google Earth under the bus, right? And also, Arwen too was there holding it down too. Doing his thing.
It's funny how quick they all backed away from that Google is our model thing when they realized that the Google model didn't actually do what they thought it did. No, that's not our model. Really? Okay, well, let's never.
Right.
Arwen's the only saving grace in those days because me and Anthony were both guilty of begging the question and allowing them to ignore perspective. And Arwen at the time is saying it till he's blue in the face and we're just not listening to him. So he's talking about the optical slant and the vanishing point and how that should be used. He's trying to show us inside profile about the optical slant and detailing it really well and concisely over and over again. And we're just not listening to him. We're just shouting at Rumpus. So if you listen to it, pay attention to Arwen as opposed to the total nonsense myself and Anthony are going through. We're going through the motions of begging the question because we're being led by them, not realising that every minute we're arguing, they're winning because we're begging the question the entire time and working with the calculator. Arwen got it from the off. Smart man that he is.
Thank you, Nathan. Yeah, I just went with what I was seeing and went from there on. And it turned out that I hit a new spot. I hit new ground, and it took some time for everyone to catch on, but they did, and it's good.
Yeah, there's other early rumblings from people like Zach, who was on yesterday, getting an earful from QE. Sorry, Zach.
Sorry
But I
about that,
think
Zach.
All of that. Sorry, John.
He's just saying sorry to
No,
Zach.
I said sorry about that. I said sorry about that, Zach. But he was. I was listening to somebody else. See, it's so hard. I don't think people understand when you're inside the hangout versus listening to the show. You hear a lot. There's a lot of things that we hear in here you never hear on the show. Just want to let you guys know that out there. And it was a cluster yesterday. So I wasn't really pounding on Zach all that much because that definition is correct. I was more or less agreeing with them that interference and diffraction are the same, just like it said in the citation, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry about that, Zach. Anyway.
There's also things that slip us by that the audience do get. So when I watch the show back on the Uncut and After show, which is the same channel this is going out on live now, I'll hear things and go, God, why couldn't I hear that through the, cutting through the rest of the audio garble that you get when you sat this side of the show. So, various concessions like Rumpus said something to the effect of, you just don't understand this concept. Well, we're shouting till we're blue in the face that it's just a concept. And he said, oh, you don't understand this concept. It's like, but I missed it. And it's only when you listen to it back that you can hear things like that come through. So the audience will be privy to things we don't get either. It's just the way it goes.
Yeah, sometimes it can be a ruckus, but also I think QE, sometimes you're just too concise for your own good.
Sorry.
Don't apologise for that. No, I'm sorry. That's the kind of consistency.
No, that's where the frustration.
Well, it gets the kind of admiration that I've just given, or the kind of kudos that Arwen's just got. The kind of concise, consistent. What's the word? Yeah, concise, short. That to the point. That's good, because then when you go back to something a year, 2 years from now, and you hear those things repeated exactly the same. I know we keep mentioning this, but there's going to be a debate that comes out on Quantum Eraser channel soon that's between him and the Rumpus from way back when. And when we were doing the evolution debunking show a couple of days back, we were saying, look, pay attention to these arguments because they're the same arguments. They're not any different. The way they formulate the fallacies are the same. The assumptions are the same. The debunkings are the same. The rebuttals from them are the same. It's amazing. The parallels are uncanny. But when Quantum Eraser stepped into the fray, a couple of weeks, he's straight in, the debate forum with Rumpus, who's very well versed in the heliocentric arguments with flat earthers. But he got a total pummeling because Quantum Eraser's consistency to understand a logical fallacy and understand the base assertion that's being made and be able to debunk it hasn't changed. And that's something that can only be applauded. I'm self-deprecating when I talk about me and Anthony being idiots because we're just being allowing ourselves to beg the question. Well, that's not my most it's not my favourite shows. There's a lot of shite that we talk in those shows because we don't know any better. We'd be the kind of people that would pour scorn on these days and go, oh God, the guy doesn't understand the argument. Why is he talking about rockets not working in a vacuum? Doesn't he get the space isn't fake? Well, we did all of that. It's embarrassing almost. But you can't get to this. You can't get to the other side unless you've gone through that, right?
Well, we were just puzzling, and you can only figure out that the puzzle is missing a few pieces by putting the puzzle together.
Yeah.
Or counting the pieces.
Yeah, we had to beg the question to realise where the magic trick worked and how the begging the question fallacy works. Because if someone just tells you, I know they're just assuming the R value, and you just assert to them, well, you've got an R value in it, and they go, well, it's justified because the Earth is a sphere, and you don't appreciate that that's just circular reasoning being asserted as a defence. In other words, you don't understand the logical fallacies that go along with all of their assertions, because they're not just going to concede. They don't just say, oh yeah, I never realised that I'm affirming the consequent, thanks for that. That's never going to happen. So yeah, you've got to understand their crap rebuttal, even when you've got a winning point. And back in the day, the winning point, and maybe Anthony will speak to this in a moment regards Hank Hill, the winning point can easily get obfuscated out of the audience's perception just with lots and lots of background noise, people running diversions. And yeah, somebody might actually get to voice the winning point, like Hank Hill did. But if it's just totally obfuscated away from, and then in that instance answered later, nobody draws the connection or sees the damaging answer to the question because they're not connected. There's so much distraction that's being run in between.
A good example of that can be seen very recently when I suggested that there was an issue in the atmosphere about where and how the volume of nitrogen in the atmosphere came from. And then subsequent from that, where did the waters of the oceans and the seas of the world come from? And then Brenda and Rumpus both joined and Rumpus the hell out of that point. And then we completely didn't address any of that for the rest of the show and got into a shitfest with them both about whatever nonsense. And for me, I was looking back thinking that was just done on purpose to derail that point so that we don't get to ask the question, where did the waters come from that fills the oceans? Because there's an awful lot of it there, right? And there's an awful lot of nitrogen in the atmosphere that science can't account for. And if we're able to demonstrate that the vacuum of space, the way we're told, isn't the way we're being told it, and that means that comets, meteorites, all the things that are up in space, that means that couldn't have caused the oceans of the world to exist because it didn't come from meteorites or asteroids. So where did the oceans come from? Oh, hi, Brenda. Hi, Rumpus. Rah!
Well, technically, it would be coming from comets. Comets.
Where would they be? Would they be in space, Arwin?
Right. If you look very carefully, there's someone. I think sometimes they light up by the sun, passing through the heat field.
Okay, right. I just want to summarize the point, because the point is that the assertion or origin story for the water on Earth is bunk automatically because it revolves around space. So Anthony's, this isn't like just because the pennies only just dropped for him, far from it, but the appreciation that all claims in space are bunk will mean that they don't have any origin story for where the water came from. And Anthony's saying, upon that rather devastating point being highlighted, there was suddenly a lot of obfuscation and distractions being run.
Yeah, and if they come in and obfuscate a point quick enough and strong enough, you completely forget what. I mean, look at Brandon Toy. Brandon Toy was in a GeoStreber hangout, and he'd realised that when GeoStreber was arguing for the EATVOS effect, when he asked where did the data come from for the graph that was being presented on screen, GeoStreber said that it was created by the model. It wasn't based on raw data. Brandon realized that this was he realized that it was reification, in the sense that he was treating this model prediction as though it was a real event in real world. And he was just about to present that point, and the Rumpus realized that Brandon was going to do that, and immediately stamped all over it, got kicked out of the hangout by GeoStreber for basically rumpusing. But the point got lost. So Brandon's devastating point that he was about to pummel into GeoStreber and actually win the point because of it, Rumpus identified that it was it, got tactically fouled, and got sent off for it. And I'm sat there watching it, realizing that this is an orchestrated move of intelligence on Rumpus's part to obfuscate the points that Brandon didn't get to claim the victory, because that's what would have happened had GeoStreber, had Rumpus not have Rumpus that particular part of the hangout, and we had it all the time.
I got an objection, Your Honor. You're ascribing some type of intelligence to Rumpus?
No, Rumpus absolutely knows how to debate. He knows this topic.
He knows how to debate. Why?
Yeah.
How does he do it? Just keep talking. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, Rumpus knows how to derail arguments.
Yeah, it's how to derail an argument as opposed to how to win the debate with coherent arguments. He knows when a coherent argument's coming from the opponent, and that being heard and recognised by the audience is devastating. Therefore, the best tactic is to stop that delivery.
Yeah. I didn't
Yeah, a
mean that, you know,
2-month-old does the same thing when they're crying and screaming.
Yeah, my kid
Same
does
thing.
it. Yeah, my 3-year-old does that.
Yeah. I didn't mean that Rumpus knew how to debate. I just meant that Rumpus knew how to derail points to support Nathan's assertion that if they obfuscate at the right time, points get lost. They do it all the time.
Right. I agree with you there. And your point, you should run that debate, what you were talking about with GeoStreamer.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
that little part, because it is devastating. I was laughing hard because I knew it before they even started talking about it, that GeoStreamer just copied it from some numbskull that made it up to conform with his model. All the data was made up. It was conjured.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
When I caught up with Brandon afterwards and I explained it to him and I took him through it step by step, and we actually rewound that hangout, and I showed him the points where Rumpus in his head has got little flags, and he could see that Brandon was narrowing the argument down. And I said to Brandon, I said, this is when you say this next sentence, that's where Rumpus realizes that GeoStream is about to lose. And Brandon realized that he was tactically outplayed there, but didn't realize it live. But when I explained it to him back, Brandon totally got it. And he was like, you little weasels. But me and Nathan see that all the time now because they've done it to us forever.
I was about to bring this round to their cries of foul play, which we get occasionally now. Normally it's, they won't let me speak, I'm getting cut off. What, with a devastating rebuttal? Yeah, that happens, yeah. Whereas back in the day, it wasn't that we were getting cut off whilst making a devastating rebuttal that was true. It was that we'd get sniped, porn bombed, kicked out of our own hangouts. The kind of language we'd have to endure would be horrendous. You know, the tables have completely turned to the point where I've become a bit more swashbuckling in my language. Partially because I don't want to be classified as children's content, put that aside. You know, it's one of those that the tables have completely turned around because they felt they were right and knew the Earth was a sphere and asserted that all of science proved it. Now, what have we got as the situation coming up to 2020? All of science proves we're on a flat plane. There is no scientific evidence for the Earth being a sphere. Pseudoscience is what's indoctrinated people. NASA lies. Space is fake. Earth is flat. That's where we're at. Have we got anything to challenge it? No, but we've got a list of questions that absolutely demolish all claims from their assertions of a spherical Earth in a vacuum. That's where we're at. So yeah, check it out. Go back to some of those old shows and listen to how badly we get pummeled frequently.
Yeah, so science doesn't prove anything. Yeah. Ballers 2019.
And the funny thing was, even back then, we were so not understanding optics back then. Remember that before? What is it? Life is too short. Well, that was pretty much at the end of that learning process. Before that, we had no idea when I came with the optical slant. So we were going with the ballers in their R-based refraction assumptions. It was very surreal to us back then because it was all we were given to go with at the time. It was a very painstaking, slow process to figure out what the hell was actually going on with that.
Right.
And how they were forcing R on us.
I think that ended in a nice culmination with Mick West coming on here and admitting that R is an assumption based on the standard model.
Yeah, that tailed it off nicely.
Mick West, ironically, is going to be on the all-new Ballbusters world premiere Saturday, 1 p.m. U.S. Central, 7 p.m. UK. Be here or be sphere. It's going to be epic.
You couldn't get him live?
What we need is somebody to do like a 3-frame cartoon. And frame 1 would be like a baller dressed like Darth Vader standing at the top of a mountain and in big letters, capital typeface. The whole body of science proves the Earth is a sphere. And then frame 2 would be a flat earther and a little speech bubble going, cough. Actually, there's no scientific evidence for Earth being a sphere. And then frame 3 would be the Darth Vader character walking down past the flat earther going, science doesn't prove anything.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I like that. That's a
Because
great.
that's literally what it is. Yep.
Oh,
One
if
of the
you're
best.
gonna see it, since you requested it, somebody's gonna do it.
I should have done that.
Remember the time when Rumpus was going through a phase where he would cite all the time? He would cite the whole body of science, Nathan. And we got that wore thin eventually, and we got him to the point where he couldn't say it anymore because the whole science doesn't have a body. And I remember one particular time, and he was about to say it, and I took the words right off the tip of his tongue, and I says to him, "I says, you were going to say the whole body of science, then, weren't you?" And he was.
Yeah, that was
The
classic.
whole body of science doesn't prove anything. Sorry, Rumpus.
So Nathan,
True.
is that Darth Vader character going to say, "May the non-force force be with you"?
Yep. That'll be a
May
different
the
cartoon strip.
non-force that you can think of as a force be with you.
May
How
the
about that?
non-force force that you can think of as a force that's not an actual force be with you.
Yes.
Should we directly say that
like it.
may the gravity be with you?
No.
No, the problem with saying "may the gravity be with you" is that could ultimately lead to the following question: either what's gravity or which one, depending on where you sit. So,
Or it's not a force.
Exactly.
The
Yeah.
only thing you say.
So we should say that may the bending of space-time be with you?
no, because that's a conceptual medium. May the not actual
Yeah.
force be with you. I quite like. May the not actual force be with you.
So when
That's
the
fine.
little guy with the bubble speech says, "I tried it, it doesn't work," he says, "Well, it doesn't work on the really is level."
It could change the prayer, couldn't it? Radius Dominus Gravitas Spiritus Sanctus, and then instead of "go in peace in our you trust," may the not actual force be with you.
Now you gotta say it in the whole thing.
Radius
May the-
Dominus Gravitas Spiritus Sanctus, may the not actual force be with you. Go in peace
But
in
then
our
you can
you
think
trust.
of it force. You
I'll
gotta
win.
put that in.
But thank you
sorry.
for rumpusing it, so I can't cut it out.
Yeah,
Sorry.
that's great. Perfect rumpusing when he was calling you out. Outstanding.
Sorry, I had to do it at least once.
Radius Dominus Gravitas Spiritus Sanctus, may the not actual force be with you. Go in peace in our you trust. Our win.
Cool.
I like it.
Yeah, we're expanding the scriptures of our own.
Yeah, I like the fact that we give them religious, like, I don't know why I'm even going to say religious connotations, because this stuff's come from priests, right? Reverend John Michel, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Abby Georges Lemaitre. Yep.
These are all
Father of
priests.
cosmology.
Yeah, they got the lot.
Well, Lemaitre came on the scene with a big bang, right?
Boom, boom.
Wow.
May the force that is not actually a force, but you can think of it as a force, be with you.
That's the one.
Hey, I already
But
said
you
that.
gotta say it in its whole, otherwise it's not as awesome. You can't drop the "but you can think of it as a force" out of it, even though it makes it much shorter. It's too good.
So when's Danny coming on the show?
Hey,
can you guys?
Oh, we got somebody trying to talk from Discord. Oh no. Xgate, is it?
No, you're good. I'm just making sure I was having audio issues. Go ahead and continue.
No, you're coming in loud and clear. We want to know when Danny's coming on the show.
He makes sporadic appearances by way of social media posts that Anthony's keeping a very close eye on.
Too funny.
Yeah, I'm new here, but happy.
Happy Thanksgiving, man. Yep.
Yeah, and I would just I thought of something funny a few minutes ago. It's kind of off topic what you guys are at right now, but it was just funny, and I looked it up just now too. When you're talking about the R radius, all that stuff, and how they supposedly did it then, well, the Eratosthenes, all that stuff. They don't even call him a scientist. They just call him a mathematician and astronomer. but then they say that he proved the curvature of the Earth. Well, how is he going to prove the curvature of the Earth when he didn't do any scientific experiments? It doesn't make any sense. But also, the other side of that is he did his experiment outside, maybe, sure, right? But did he ever take his experiment inside and use a light source from inside, so he could actually use that experiment as scientific, because he changed the location of where he was doing, because now we know that you get that same shadow effect inside as well as outside. So I just thought those two things are pretty funny.
Last person I saw that do that inside was Math Powerland. Just did it with a couple of stage lights, and yeah, absolutely spot on. But he didn't prove radius, so he makes his measurements depending on which story you go to, sticks and shadows or wells, depending on which version is being recited. That aside, he's presupposing he's measuring a sphere to get that measurement, to get that value. The presupposition, they'll make that overt as well. If you look up the actual description, he starts with the assumption that he's on a sphere and then goes forth to make the measurements. So it's still begging the question. It's still assuming Earth's a sphere at the outset. In other words, it's assuming Earth has a spherical radius value. So if you're going to look at these lights and their movements, well, unless you assume Earth is a sphere to begin with, you're just going to get a circle on a flat disk, aren't you? Well, they have to assume that they're measuring a spherical R value when they do it. Okay? Makes sense?
I think you got the entire core of the religion now. Sorry. Did I interrupt anyone?
Yeah, no, you didn't know. It's Aristarchus, right? He's the first one to make the assumption that Earth's a sphere.
Right. And it all started there. It is basically that. It is against better knowing, using machinations to cover everything up, assuming the Earth is a sphere. That is the religion, and everything is all filler.
Yep. In our You Trust fundies.
Arwin.
What?
In our You Trust. Go in peace, Arwin.
I still have a dubious feeling being part of an actual global religious event.
Yeah, but it's separated.
Doesn't sound separated to me, but that's fine.
Yeah. Hey, when is this show going out? Hey, when is this show going out? Over.
It's going out now. It's live.
Oh, is it live? Going on now?
Yeah. So for those of you watching live, the Ballbusters mentioned earlier, Be Here or Be Sphere on the Quantum Eraser channel, 7 p.m. UK, 1 p.m. Central Standard, Saturday. That will be 2 days from now. Whereas if you're watching this on the Nathan Oakley 1980 premiering stream, it's tomorrow, because this goes out on Friday. But this is live right now.
Oh, cool. Yeah, it's the world premiere of the new Ballbusters. Show some enthusiasm. It's going to be epic.
Yay.
Even fake enthusiasm is okay.
Okay.
I can't wait.
No, been hustling the whole team, the whole lot. All Ballbusters should be there, hopefully, God willing. Ranty will be there, Arwin, Bible Literalist, 10th Man, Sleeping Warrior, Quantum Eraser, myself, and Dr. John D. So the whole kit and caboodle, hopefully, will be there on Saturday.
Hello.
And the first question on the table will be Mick Westian, or pseudo Mick Westian 2 space. So that'll be the first thing we open with. So Be Here or Be Sphere, Quantum Eraser channel, 7 p.m. UK time, 1 p.m. Central Standard on the Quantum Eraser channel Saturday. Tomorrow, if you're watching on Nathan Oakley 1980.
It's going to be epic. I'm not playing any games. I'm not just telling tales out of school. You got to be there for this one, folks.
Right.
Thanks.
I really wonder, by the way, has anybody talked to Mick West in recent times? Because I really wonder
Yes.
what he would say when we told him about Mick Westian 2 space.
Yes, I did. I said it. Yeah, it's a debate on 24/7. That's what we're going to be going over. Yes, it was just a couple weeks ago. Yes to all your questions.
What the hell?
Yeah,
I missed
a few weeks ago, Arwen. You don't go on Discord, Arwen. That's what it
No.
is.
Oh, it wasn't there. Ugh.
Yeah, it was on.
Oh,
It
then
was
it
on the
doesn't count.
24/7 Discord 2.0. He
Listen, I'm
came on and-
editing. I'm editing it
Discord
right
doesn't
now,
count.
but I'm going to try to put it out later this evening or at the latest tomorrow in Ballbusters Skype.
The
So
edited,
you can review it. All
the
right.
edited Mick West bit.
Yeah, the whole bit.
Oh, okay, cool. Great. Thank you.
Don't mention it.
Yeah, it was pretty fun.
Chocolate was there.
Science communicator.
Oh my God! Wait till I'll tell you what. I don't know how Mick West is going to be able to show his face after this one, folks. It's bad.
Is that bad?
Real bad.
Yeah, it's a real embarrassment because he's claiming to be a science communicator and then he's held to task on what science actually is, and he hasn't got the vaguest notion. So it's an outrage that he can claim to be a science communicator. The guy hasn't got the first clue.
Okay.
No, he says he's
then
a
he must
science
be able to
communicator.
communicate the
Then he's-
scientific
hold
method,
on.
right?
Hold on. He says he's a science communicator. Then he says he's not a science communicator. And then he says he is a science communicator. That's just one.
Okay.
That's just one of the fiascos.
So if he's a
But
science
he
communicator,
kinda
does that
hinted-
mean that he communicates not proving anything?
Yeah, but John, remember he kind of hinted that he had to kind of dumb it down for the masses that he would have to communicate it with, right?
Oh yeah,
That's
that being played back, right? I really want to rub that in the ballers' their noses in that. That's brilliant. That is.
Yep.
He thinks you're dumb, ballers. Mick West thinks you're all retards, and he needs to dumb things right down for your dumb asses. That's what he thinks. And I'm gonna pause over that bit. We're gonna just dissect it. We're gonna talk about that at length. Just how dumb he thinks you are. By the way, he hasn't got a vaguest clue what science is, but nevertheless, he thinks you're dumb.
Well, at least he got that right. Right.
Yeah, but this is just after being asked, what are the three parts of an experiment?
Hey,
did
chocolate.
not-
Chocolate, come on now.
Let's not
Hey,
give too much
chocolate.
away.
All right, my bad. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Come
on now.
my bad. Yeah.
So with that, I'm going to say, if you're watching this on the Nathan Oakley 1980 premiering stream, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you're watching this live on the Nathan Oakley live stream, then this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to both today's Discord and G+ panels for making this live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley. Stay tuned if you're watching on the premiering stream, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!